Is Houston the best defense Baylor has played all year? And will it be enough to slow down this Bears offense and end the win streak? Let's get locked on Baylor.
You are Locked On Baylor, your daily podcast on the Baylor Bears. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Welcome to another episode of Locked On Baylor, brought to you by FanDuel. I'm your host, Cam Stewart of ESPN Central Texas and the Cam Show on YouTube. It is Wicker Wednesday, so Sydney Wicker from KCEN, Channel 6 News, or Channel 6 Sports. We don't want to get you caught up in that, Sydney. Joins us now. Sydney is less tired this week, but still tired. She's still working hard. And here, Sydney, today, we are here to talk about the going bowling Baylor Bears. And many have been saying that since Sydney has entered the market, the Bears have been unstoppable. Are you taking credit for this winning streak?
No, because I don't want anything bad to happen. So I take no credit. I am just here for the fun. But I do like to brag about it because they have kind of been on fire. So I think the Iowa State game was like the only game I've had to cover that was not in Baylor's favor. Everything else, though, things have looked pretty good for the Bears. So I'm not going to take full credit, but maybe just like a good luck charm. Maybe it's like a superstition thing. I don't know.
Plus, like you weren't like really settled in for that Iowa State game, so we can't count it.
Exactly. But if I don't get an NIL deal out of this, I want no part.
I think that's something to bring up to Dave, to be honest.
I'll mention it next week.
Next week's press conference. I think that's a good deal. Well, let's go back to Iowa State a little bit. That was the first week in October, right? I'm looking at my calendar, which I have not changed over to November, even though we're more than halfway through it. Yes, it was October 5th. Or 6th, or whatever that says. And it was ugly. Baylor was up 14-3 in that game. They ended up losing it 43-20. And it was really low, man. Like it was 2-4. It was the same old, same old. Did you think at all that was going to be like, this team is just going to rattle it off from here?
I don't think many people did. And I think that's
There's some that are claiming to now, but no, there were not a lot.
Nobody did. And we have to be honest in that. And nobody believed in themselves more than this team did. And that's been very transparent because Dave would come in time and time again and say, we're a good team. We're just not playing 4 full quarters of football. We're making mistakes. We're letting ourselves lose. We're not letting these other teams win. We are beating ourselves. We are finding ways to lose games. And when it comes down to that, of course, you have to have a serious heart-to-heart talk. And that's what happened with these guys. They heard the kids on campus talking so poorly about their performance, and they really started to hang their heads. And that moment, it was when they were like, we are so much better than this, and we know it. We have to prove it, though. And they did. And so today I asked Coach Aranda, I was like, we've talked so many times about how there's been times for this team to fold, but you found answers in the last couple weeks. Do you feel like this team thought that they couldn't do this, or that there was ever a moment where they thought that? And
when I remember the Iowa State game, I just, it was a pretty brutal feeling. But more than that, though, I think everyone knew we were a good team. And everyone knew we're way better than this. And it's like, when are we going to stop finding ways to lose? I think that was the thing. So I know what's hard is when you want to compare. So you want to compare it to last year, and it's from top to bottom, inside out, and all around. It's a completely different team. I mean, where the emphasis is, how it was built, completely different in every way. And so whereas last year's team maybe would have some of those questions of, hey, are we good enough? Can we do this? What are we doing? This year's team never blinked. And so you could feel that more than anything.
Wow. So you went out there and asked it, Sydney, but it was pretty doom and gloom.
I was nervous.
Oh, come on. Dave he doesn't appreciate questions anymore. That's the issue. He used to, at the beginning of every question, appreciate that. And when you weren't getting an appreciate that, that's how you knew it was a bad deal. But now he doesn't do it a lot. Dave has become a lot more. How do I put this? He has become a lot more demure in his press
Look at you all
conference.
hip and savvy.
To be honest with you, Sydney, I barely know what that means.
Does anybody really understand it? I don't think so.
He used to do like all kinds of analogies. He'd have some smiles in there. He still says it's good to see you guys, but he's like cracked some jokes this year and has not laughed once. Like it's actually really interesting. Like you could tell he's trying to like say a joke and we'll kind of laugh and he'll just be like, yep. Mm-hmm. But he lays it out there of a locker room that was pissed, which is a word he's used a lot this year. Not in that particular one, but he uses that word a lot now. And saying that this was a team that was kind of ready to win is what he said there without really saying it. And he had talked about this in the beginning of the season of this is a different team from last year. And last year they were 3-3 through 6 games. This year they were 2-4. And it was like, okay, that's great, Dave. And we see some more talent here, but when is it coming together? I cannot sit here and say that at 2-4, I was like, okay, the toughest part of their schedule is done. Here come the Baylor Bears. But what's incredible, Sydney, is that they did like all that stuff Dave was talking about. They did have that confidence in, all right, this is done. We got a bye week. We're going to go out to Tech and we're going to play our butts off and we're going to beat them. And they blew the doors off them. And now here we are a month later talking about, is this team even going to lose again this year?
Nobody, I literally never would have thought that this would be
Who
the
knew
situation.
This was the
that we're
turning
in.
point. I 43-20 does not feel like the turning point. And here we are. I cannot believe with that team we watched last year, of which there are a lot of guys back on this team that played in 2023, that team that just felt like it couldn't get out of its own way, just felt like, at the first sign of adversity, that was it. And with a coach who was coming off back-to-back losing seasons and firmly on the hot seat and new coordinators in there, that all this thing needed was a little bit of time, right?
A little bit of time and a little bit of love, but maybe some hatred because that's what really fueled them.
I mean, I guess, yeah. You said it. They were embarrassed.
They were embarrassed. And I think we forget sometimes that these kids, these guys, they're kids. They are in college. They are walking amongst other students and they're hearing what people say about them in front of their faces. Some of these kids might not even realize that, hey, that's the quarterback of the football team, or hey, that's Bryson Washington, the running back of the football team, but they're listening. And finally they were able to flip this script a little bit. And it's been so fun to watch them. I talked about how contagious their energy is. And, Coach Aranda has started every presser by saying, we're having a good week of practice. There's a new confidence, or we feel good. He's mentioned so many positive things about the way that this team starts off each week. And it's bled into what they've been able to do. And it's made a huge impact. I think the win in Morgantown really was such a staple for them. It wasn't pretty, and that's something Coach Aranda talked about the whole way through, and I thought it was funny. He was like, it's like you have a newborn baby, and it's ugly, and everybody's telling you it's ugly, but you don't care because you just love it. It's a baby, and that's really what happened. They had to love.
One of the great analogies he's had in a long time. Like, that was vintage Dave analogy right there.
Yes, I had to use that in my show on Monday because it was just too good. But with all of the highs and the lows, they're finding ways to still love the pieces that they are able to put together. And although this isn't the cleanest football team that we've seen, I think it's one that's making a statement and building a future for what's to come.
And they have kind of a test this week. We might not see it, but we'll look too far into it and tell you why it's a test. That's coming up next on Locked On Baylor. Look, y'all, I love getting a great deal as much as the next guy, but I'm not going to run through a car wash just to save a few bucks, okay? It's got to be easy. I don't want to jump through hoops. So when Mint Mobile said it was easy to get wireless for $15 a month with the purchase of a 3-month plan, I called them on it. Well, it turns out it really is that easy to get wireless for $15 a month. The longest part of the process was the time I spent on hold waiting to break up with my old provider. So to get started, go to mintmobile.com/lockedoncollege, and there you'll see that right now all 3-month plans are only $15 a month. They all come with high-speed data and unlimited talk and text delivered on the nation's largest 5G network. So to get this new customer offer and your new 3-month premium wireless plan for just $15 a month, go to mintmobile.com/lockedoncollege. That's mintmobile.com/lockedoncollege. Cut your wireless bill to $15 a month at mintmobile.com/lockedoncollege. $45 upfront payment required, equivalent to $15 a month. New customers on first 3-month plan only. Speed slower, above 40 gigabytes on unlimited plan. Additional taxes, fees, and restrictions apply. See Mint Mobile for details. The Bears look to continue this win streak at Houston. Some would call it Coug High. On Saturday night, actually, they take on Houston. And I mentioned this in the show yesterday. And Sydney, people will be saying that this is like classic doom and gloom Cam Stewart here. But I don't love that the two remaining teams that they have to play in this regular season both have 6 losses. Because most people would be like, hell yeah, those teams stink. They have 6 losses through 10 games. That's awesome. Don't you want that? I'm like, no, because this is the Big 12 and any given Saturday. And these are two teams with their backs up against the wall and have shown some good things this year. Like, is Houston a great football team? No, but they went and they beat TCU on the road. Okay. Kansas is the best 6-loss team in America. Okay. They just knocked off an undefeated team in Provo. Like that does not happen. That's nuts. And they flipped the script on the way they play. They won it 17-13. I don't love facing either of those two teams. And the other thing too, is Houston's got a great defense. We're going to talk about that in a minute, but Sydney, am I overthinking this?
I hate to also be the Debbie Downer here, but I
Yes.
don't think so. And I think if you think like us and you have like a sports brain, maybe that's why. But I was literally going to say, if you're Baylor, you can't get comfortable. And I know that's a feeling that you said you've experienced just from being a fan for so long,
sure.
but you can't get too comfortable in this situation. I was listening to Houston's head coach, Willie Fritz, talk in his presser this week, and he was like, we want to win every game on our schedule. Our season is not done. And if we look at it that way, that's a very poor way of looking at it. If you're a fan, you look at these, you look at Kansas's record, you look at Houston's record, and you're like, oh, easy, we got this. An in-state rival is one you can never overlook. When you think about Houston, there's always a little extra chip that comes into that. I mean, TCU is a little bit different, I would say, but anytime you're playing an in-state rival, it's going to get chippy. You know, Coach Aranda talked about these guys know some of the coaches on that squad. They know some of the other players. Like, it's a very personal to the guys who take this field. So I never get comfy. Even as a Michigan fan, I don't ever overlook Michigan State because you just never know. And I am the same way about Baylor. I would not be overlooking any of my competitors these next couple weeks. I'd want to make a statement, but there's nothing to overlook. There is no easy win left. It's going to be hard from here on out.
The Bell brothers on that staff for Houston, former Baylor coaches too, China Spring legends, if we're mentioning that too. I like Willie Fritz, by the way. I think it's a win for the old people. You know, this has been if Houston gets to bowl eligibility, which I hope they don't, because that would mean they beat Baylor.
Well, they could maybe next week.
This would be the year.
I guess they can't. They're at 4. Sorry.
They can't. This would be the year of the old coach. Because everyone's going after, you know, the GJ Kinneys of the world and the 35 to 40-year-olds, hotshot young coaches. And here are guys like Willie Fritz. He will be a bowl coach for Houston. It might not be this year, but he's going to build that thing back up. Kurt Cignetti, old guy of the year up at IU, they're going to be in the playoff, which is incredible to think about. If you're a college football fan of any generation, you would be like, what? Indiana in the playoff. So this might be the year of the old guy. And what Willie Fritz has done to turn this thing around is defensively. And that's what Dave Aranda is looking at and keying on this week for the Bears as they travel out to UH.
There's some good energy and confidence right now with the team. For sure, they see the challenge ahead with a really strong Houston team. I want to say defensively, particularly, their front is probably the best that we've played or that we're going to play. You just look at the individual playmakers there and how life is made difficult, whether you're trying to run it or throw it. And so that jumps off the screen when you watch it. And then, offensively, the skill players they have, whether it's quarterback or running back or, at receiver, a lot of speed and shiftiness. I think special teams has always been a big emphasis for their coach and just throughout the history of the thing, and it's the same now. And so a lot of dangerous weapons that they have that when you watch the film, you can see their competitiveness and their belief. And, with it being a night game and just all of it, I know that it's going to be a tough opponent. Our guys see that from the beginning, and so we'll be prepared for that.
So, yeah, Houston, dangerous team potentially, even at 4-6. Again, they've done some things this year. They haven't figured out a lot offensively, but that defense is kind of legit, Sydney.
Yeah, I mean, just to point out, they're ranked 5th in the Big 12 when it comes to defenses overall this season. The last time Baylor played a team with this high of a defense that was in the top 5 is when they played Iowa State.
That makes sense.
So they're going to have a very big test. And Dave talked about how he was not happy with the defensive performance, and that's in his hands. He's in control of this. And, I think back to a couple weeks ago when he said he didn't have a perfect rhythm or a good system yet when it came to figuring out how to make all these adjustments and these calls when it comes to being the head coach and also worrying about your defense in a game. That's a lot. I mean, as a coach, you're already locked in through all 4 quarters, but I feel like part of you kind of has to be thinking about what's next for the defense and maybe not necessarily focusing on the offense, which thankfully he hasn't really had to. Sawyer, Bryson, they've kind of figured some things out and it's been good. But I mean, that worries me a little bit, just that added pressure of you are facing a really good Houston team who's going to give your offense a threat. How is your defense going to respond? I don't think Houston has shown a lot on offense that Baylor's defense can not shut down. It just comes to making sure you continue to execute on all cylinders.
Yeah, they're stinky offensively. You can say it. They're stinky. But defense, they're legit.
Well, watch that. I don't want to say that and then they come out and have a record performance.
Sometimes you got to do that.
Knock on wood.
Sometimes you got to do that, Sydney. That's the world of this. Okay, sometimes you just got to do it. But
I don't like to be wrong. I am an oldest child. I am never wrong.
According to some loyal fans of this podcast, I've never been wrong. So I thank them for that. There are some people, though, who comment that this winning streak is nothing because all they play is crap defenses. And they did for a couple of weeks. And I thought West Virginia's solid defense. They did not look the part against Baylor on Saturday. And here you've got a Houston team that's not taking any feces, man. Like they know they don't have a great offense, that it's all on them defensively. And Willie Fritz more of a defensive guy. And they have taken, some real ownership of that. So my question now is inside the podcaster studio, is this win streak a little bit fluky because they haven't played a defense this good since they got their doors blown off by Iowa State a month and a half ago?
I don't know.
Oh, come on.
We're going to find out. We're going to find out.
I thought we had found out on Saturday. Honestly, I did.
Yeah.
Because that was a good run defense. West Virginia, good run defense.
It was. I don't know. I really feel like this Saturday is more of the test. There was just so much riding on that West Virginia game. Like this team just wanting to punch that eligibility to become bowl eligible. This team wanting to get their first win in Morgantown. Like there was just so many parts of that. And sometimes momentum is what carries. So I don't know. I do feel like this offense is, like Coach has said, they're very confident right now. They're looking really good, but they are going to be tested big time. And I don't know. I can't say that the offense is fluky. I think they're legit.
47 points per game in this win streak, by the way, which is the most in the Big 12 in that span.
Yeah, incredible. But we're going to find out if they can keep that going against good defense.
This offense rocks. Like dudes will see this offense and say, hell yeah. Like that rocks so hard. Like, yeah.
I keep calling it Sawyer swagger because he just has this fun, like, swagger about him. He just plays it so cool and like it's just fun. And then Bryson, I have no words for him. He's a beast. His beast mode is completely active and it's so fun to watch. They are cool. Dave Aranda a couple weeks said he's never been called cool. Well, you're cool now, coach, and we are here for it.
And I called him on that. That I think he's been called cool at some point in his life. Just what I think personally.
At least once.
Speaking of cool, there's a lot of ways you can describe Rick Pitino. One of them could be cool if you're into that New York City slicker thing. That's who Scott Drew will be lined up against when the Bears take on the Johnnies in, I almost said Bermuda, but it's the Bahamas. Let's take a look at that game next on Locked On Baylor. Do your loved ones live far away and you're hoping that you would be closer to them in this holiday season? I know that's the case for me. Well, we've got the perfect gift for you. Skylight Frame is the touchscreen digital photo frame your whole family will love. Upload thousands of photos with your phone and watch them appear in seconds. It's so easy to use. It takes less than a minute to set it up, and you can invite friends and family to easily share photos via the free Skylight mobile app or email. No account or subscription required. And that touchscreen, it is a game changer. It's going to look great in your home, even better than what you see on social media. And now, as a special limited time offer for our listeners, get $20 off your purchase of a Skylight Frame when you go to skylightframe.com/college. That's SKYLIGHTFRAME.com/COLLEGE. Get $20 off your purchase now at skylightframe.com/college. Today's episode is also brought to you by FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook. And right now, new customers can bet $5 and get $150 in bonus bets if you win. The FanDuel Sportsbook app gives you everything you need to place live bets on the NFL all in one place. So when you get a hunch in the middle of the game, you're going to be able to check out the latest stats. You can view live play-by-play and so much more on the same page where you place your bets. Just visit FanDuel.com to join today. You're going to get started with $150 in bonus bets if you win that first $5 bet. That's FanDuel.com. Never waste a hunch and make every moment more with FanDuel, an official sportsbook partner of the NFL. There is basketball going on. I know that's a big issue. You know, we're still in football mode. Football's going well. Basketball's also going well, though. And the men's team heads out to the Bahamas yesterday and will take on St. John's tomorrow. That's a ranked matchup, by the way. That's 13 versus 22. Like, maybe there's some name brand recognition with the whole Rick Pitino thing, St. John's. But how about this for a matchup? Can you find two coaches more different in college basketball than Scott Drew and Rick Pitino? What's your favorite Rick Pitino scandal?
Oh, I don't know.
I think the waitress one is funny. I'm sorry. It's no laughing matter. You can't do that. But if anyone's going to get caught like that, it's probably going to be Rick Pitino. And yeah, I'll stick with that one. Which vacates a championship for Louisville. I liked white suit. I can't help it. Sometimes I like Rick Pitino. I liked white suit Rick Pitino. I hated the way he ruined the Celtics. Larry Bird is not walking through that door. Kevin McHale's not walking through that door, and Robert Parrish is not walking through that door, Scott Drew. And if they do, they're going to be gray and old. I can't help it. Sometimes I like Rick Pitino. And this is a great matchup early in the season of, again, Scott's already faced a Hall of Fame coach in John Calipari, one in Mark Few. He's going to have one that's going to be, on the fast track to be a Hall of Fame coach in Dan Hurley here in a couple of weeks. And you get this one here. It's a homecoming for VJ Edgecombe to the Bahamas. A lot of storylines here, Sydney, for a pre-Thanksgiving tournament. And I'm excited. I know we're not supposed to be excited for Baylor basketball yet because it's still football season. Things are going well. But this is a top 25 matchup for, once again, a chance to prove that this team has bounced back from that Gonzaga loss.
Oh, yeah. I think it's a huge opportunity for them to respond again. Obviously, having Tarleton State at home and Sam Houston, 2 nice games to just really, dominate in
Plus
and show off.
110. Plus
Ah,
110 in those 2
so
games
fun.
for the folks at home. Yeah.
But that, speaking of fun, like that's something that those guys got to do in those games. We saw a couple nice dunks, like they were playing with some flavor, and that was awesome. VJ talked in the presser on Sunday night that he's excited to go home, but he was like, it's a business trip. Like, we're going to have fun and hopefully hang out a little bit, but we are going to play. And that's something coach, of course, he's going to stick to the game plan, but he did joke with VJ and he says, you're in charge of the attendance. If that doesn't feel like a home crowd for us, then it's all your fault. So I'm excited
That's
to
a
see
good
how
point.
his family, it turns out for that one. Also,
I think
back,
St. John's is a big contingent in the Bahamas.
yeah,
I would watch out for that. I think there are big Johnnies over there. I think there's a lot of Rick Pitino people. I'm just saying, something to watch for.
I think too, when you have caliber coaches like this, people want to come watch.
That's true.
It's fun. People hear these names, and when it's a household name, you always want to come see with your own eyes. So I'm excited to see how the game plays out. I think it'll be a good chance for Baylor to, like you said, give themselves a new name from that Gonzaga game. VJ has hit a new stride too.
Oh.
Gosh, I asked him about being comfortable, and he joked. He was like, well, most freshmen don't start their seasons playing against Gonzaga on the road.
Yeah.
Which, to give him credit, that you're definitely not the average freshman, but to have this opportunity to play big time and to perform in front of hopefully a home-ish crowd.
Hopefully.
We'll,
and by the way, you've seen, so I've talked a lot about VJ and the experience of watching VJ, right? I said it the other night after the Tarleton game that it's unlike anything I've felt at Baylor games. Not that this is the best team or he's the best player or anything, but when it's imminent that VJ is about to bring the house down with a dunk or a block sometimes, but with the dunks, it's like, that moment when it's happening is incredible. You have gotten to see it at floor level. What has that been like, catching VJ Edgecombe the first couple of games of his career?
Well, my favorite thing to do after he gets a nice dunk or has this key moment is to turn around and look at the students behind me and see their faces. Because every single time it's like nobody can believe it. And for me too, I catch myself like my jaw cannot be on the floor. I have to film the next play.
Dude, I'm up in the press area like
what?
Like, we can't not appreciate this.
It's so good. And you had mentioned it's not like anything you had seen in a while. That's something I've talked about with other members of the media. There's been so many good basketball players who have come through this Bears program in the last couple of years, but VJ seems so different and just so special, and something like a lot of people I feel like haven't seen before in the way that he does it. But seeing him on the court just from the floor level is really a blessing. I feel like it's going to be one of the highlights of my career because he's special. And it's very, very obvious. Quickly, too. Obvious.
It's really, really fun. Make sure you make these days count with VJ, because there's not going to be many in the grand scheme of things. It's going to be one season. I have to apologize. I didn't let you do your Rick Pitino impression. Did you want to get one of those in before we get out of here?
I do have a good New York accent. I don't know if I can do a good Rick Pitino.
I mean, that'll be close enough.
But I don't know. I guess.
Where did you get a good New York accent?
I have family that lives in New York and New Jersey.
Okay.
So this is firsthand experience, New York.
Okay.
I feel like you have to talk about pizza when you do the New York accent.
Go ahead, please. Have at it.
Oh, I gotta lock in. You are putting me on the spot right here, so I'm getting nervous. Okay, let's see. I'm gonna order one slice only. It's gotta be thin. If I'm crunching on the crust, it's not good. I'm gonna send it back. The sauce, thin. I don't need a lot of sauce, just a little bit. Toppings, Just a little pepperoni and a little bit of Parmesan. That's it. That's all I'm asking for. Got it? Thank you.
Bravo.
Me and my sister do New York accents back and forth just to mess around with each other. So, but you threw me on the spot. I really had to like focus.
That's where legends are made, Sydney, is on the spot. Okay. If you say you have the accent, then you can do it on the spot. So, I mean, yeah, you just talk about who's not going to walk through that door, and you've got Rick Pitino right there.
That's true.
That's great stuff. Sydney, thanks so much for coming on again. We appreciate Wicker Wednesdays whenever we can do it because, there'll be Tuesday basketball games. So we'll work in Wicker Wednesdays whenever we can, but you'll be here every week and we appreciate it. Plug the app again, please, because I always forget the name of it, even though I literally have it on my phone.
6 Plus, KCN 6 Plus. You just download it if you want to watch this Locked On podcast or anything that we do. We always have recaps of Baylor from press conferences on Mondays to post-game interviews with Scott Drew after basketball. You name it, we have it. 6 Plus KCN app.
All right, that's Sydney. I'm Cam. We'll be back tomorrow on your favorite show. Be sure to like and subscribe, ring that notification bell, and get involved down in the comment section below how you think this basketball game is going to go, when you thought the turning point actually was. And do we have, a little bit of worry with this Houston defense? Drop that down in the comment section below. Thank you for making it your first listen today and every day. We'll see you tomorrow on Locked On Baylor.